You're listening to the Generation X-Wing podcast with your hosts, Anil Sharma, Jamie Millman, Steve 3, and Rob Williams. Welcome to the Generation X-Wing podcast, a modern look at a retro lifestyle. My name is Rob Williams, and I'm here with
Anil Sharma,
as well as
Jamie Millman.
And don't forget,
Steve 3.
We have a special guest today. You might recognize our special guest from season 2 of The Mandalorian, where he played X-Wing pilot Captain Carson Teva alongside the boss, Dave Filoni. Or you've probably seen him as lovable role as Appa in the CBC hit comedy Kim's Convenience, which he has won twice for Best Performance in a Comedy Series at the Canadian Screen Awards. You may have seen him hanging out in his geeky basement on his Bitter Asian Dude YouTube channel, or maybe you've just seen him wandering the conventions and raising money for charity while trooping in a range of Star Wars costumes for the Canadian Garrison 501st Legion. Wherever you've seen him, you're hearing him now, is the amazing Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
We got Ewoks cheering for you there in edit. So we are so excited for you to join us on this is our 6th anniversary show. We've been doing this for 6 years, and what better way to start 2021 than having you on our show? Thank you so much. We are so proud of you for what you've done, not only just for geeks around the world and Canadian geeks around the world for showing up on Mandalorian, but for shows like Kim Convenience, for the work you do in the 501st. I think personally, thank you so much for what you do.
Oh, wow. I'm honored. Thank you so much. But I'm really not doing that much. It's a little bit overwhelming. I'm a new member newish. I think I got entry into the membership into the 501st like October of 2018. And I haven't been able to troop as much as I'd like to, just because of time constraints and stuff. But whenever I do get a chance to go out, I always try to spend a day or so at the booths to help out in any way I can, and the different troops when I'm available. I'd love to, because the members are fantastic. The people are great, and it's for a great cause. So.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm a school teacher in middle school here in Coquitlam, and we have a very high Korean population here. And when I mentioned to them that, I go, has anybody watched Kim's Convenience? And like so many hands shot up. And I said, I got an interview with Appa. And they're like, he's so awesome. He's so cool. And they love the show. And so it's really cool. I think I want to get into your history of how you got into acting, but Kim's Convenience has been a great show for just opening up the doors for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's a role of a lifetime, really, for me, because it previously all the work, the majority of the work that I did were smaller parts, day player bits, expositional characters, not real human beings. They're just sort of like characters or caricatures even. And to get a role like Appa in Kim's Convenience, where it's a 3-dimensional, fully realized sort of character, and to be able to have a narrative to play instead of just tell somebody else's story, it was an amazing, just an amazing experience to have and an opportunity to have. And that really opened up the doors to a lot of things, including my appearance on Mandalorian. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I'm really glad that a lot of people have enjoyed the work, and I'm mostly proud of the fact that it has, like you said, this representation of an Asian character opening up the door for the next generation of kids growing up, because I certainly did not have a strong Asian sort of character to sort of look upon and say that's a success story, or there are stories about people who look like me out there in the medium that we watch. So it's been a crazy, satisfying, fun, exciting journey.
As I was doing my research for this episode, I wanted to make sure I came prepared with hopefully questions that you don't get all the time. It's just out of your bio, it said that your father's older brother was a respected actor, but it is said on the internet, I don't know how much of this is true, so maybe you can help clarify that as well. Said he died in poverty. Yeah. So your parents were not so much bought into you becoming an actor.
Yeah. They're terrified.
So when you kind of hit it and you got your first paycheck, like your first big payday from acting, And it, so again, if this is true or not, you'll have to let us know. You gave your first paycheck to them.
Yeah.
Did that change their mind at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And that story is true. When I said I wanted to be an actor, my parents were mortified, and my dad especially so, and I couldn't understand why. And it wasn't until third year university, my dad and I got into a huge fight over what I was going to do with my life. And it came out, I said, you don't understand what I want to do. You don't know what acting is. You don't know any of this stuff. And that's when he told me that his older brother was an actor, and he saw how my uncle, his brother, and my father adored his older brother. And he saw the struggles that he went through, and everybody loved him, and he was a great actor, but he still died in poverty. And so he was terrified. That's the same thing that was going to happen to me. And that was in Korea. And I remember telling my dad, say, look, it's different here. The way movies are made or television series, it's different. Theater, it's all different. This is a North American or Canadian way of doing things. And you got to trust me that this is, it's a profession, it's a career, there's a craft to it, and people can get work in it. And that's my plan. My plan is not to die in abject poverty. I don't think anybody plans to do that. When you want to go into something, it's because you love it and you want to succeed in it, or at least work in it and see if you can succeed in it. And I wanted that opportunity. And so, he fretted, but it gave me a better understanding of where my dad was coming from and why there was such pushback. And so it was a struggle. They were right. My parents, it was hard work, just getting work, getting out of university. I went to U of T, and it's a fantastic drama program there. And I learned the foundations, the basics of the craft of acting, but they're more academically based there. And so graduating, I could tell you about European theater history, and I could tell you about all the different styles of acting and whatnot. But when it came down to the practical applications, like how do you get a job? What do you need agents for? What are the unions for? All of that, there was nothing. I'd learned nothing of that. And so it was like I ended up having to walk away from acting for a year, and I got a job as working in technical side of theater. So I did a lot of apprentice stage managing, some crew work and this and that, doing lighting calls, but I wasn't happy. I really, really wasn't happy. And one of my old university instructors cast me in a play that he was doing. And that's how I got back into it. And I lost money doing this play because he couldn't pay me anything. But me being in that, a few members of another theater company, they were desperately looking to cast an Asian male actor, and they saw me in it, and they got me an audition, and I booked that. And then that's what got the ball rolling. So I sort of fell ass backward back into acting with that. And so that got me my first agent. That second show was a huge hit. I got great reviews. That got me my first agent, which led to my first ever role and it was a movie of the week, one of those TV movie of the weeks. And I got 7 days of filming on that, which is huge, especially for like my first ever TV gig type thing. And so I got my first paycheck was for a princely sum I'd never ever seen before. And I was like, it was like maybe $5,000. But for me, that was like when you're working minimum wage at retail jobs and you're used to seeing maybe $300 at a time, and minus all the taxes and deductions and stuff, you get a chunk of change for $5,000, and that's after my agent had taken a commission off of it. You're like, oh my God, I'm rich. I can hunt people for sport. That's the thing. But I remember going to my parents and I gave it to them. I said, this is for you to say thank you for putting up with all of my bullshit growing up, but also to show you that I can make a living. I can make a living doing this. This is an example of the type of money that is available if I can book the work. And then after that, they were like, okay, go. Hurry up, get more work. They became really the big boosters. Like, hey, have you booked anything yet? Are you auditioning? What's going on?
It must have also been a really big uplifting thing to see a paycheck for $5,000 for doing something you really enjoyed doing as well, as opposed to not enjoying anything you were doing and earning the paycheck. Now you got this huge paycheck and you enjoyed every moment of what you were doing.
And that was only the first paycheck too. Like I went, that wasn't for the whole 7 days. That was just the first paycheck. And so that what made me feel like I can do this. Like I'm a star. I'm gonna be. But what happened was, and this is youth. You book something and you think that's it. I made it. I'm gonna be like, the trajectory is nothing but up. I'm gonna be a superstar. And for the next couple of gigs, I actually ended up booking a lot of work, which was great. But then it stopped, and it all dried up, and I wasn't booking work. And the money that I made, I pissed away. I didn't give it all to my parents, but I was stupid with it, basically. And it was another great hard lesson that I learned, is when the sun is shining and you're making hay, you got to save up for when it's not. And I went into debt after that. And it was just like this whole, and I kept thinking, no, I'm not going to get any other work because I'm an actor. I act. I don't need another job. I'm going to book something. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point where I had creditors chasing after me, and I was in debt. And it was just like, I have to work. I got to pull myself out of this. And I ended up having to take like 2 jobs, work 2 separate jobs to just try to crawl back to like being, at zero sum. And that was humbling. That was really humbling. And like, when you're an actor and you're working at a bookstore and a video store, and those are great jobs too. I mean, talk about great retail jobs. But when you're there and people are like, so what do you do? Oh, I'm an actor. Oh, yeah, right. You're an actor. That's tough on your ego, right? Because everybody always says, oh, yeah, I acted. I was in a grade 2 production of Save That Forest, where I played the sapling. And you're like, okay, that's great. But you would never say to a doctor, oh, I've practiced medicine. The other day I had a splinter and I removed it. And that's kind of what people do when you meet a professional actor and you shit all over the crap. Sorry, you crap all over the crap. It's kind of what happened. You're like, you would never have the gall to say that to any other an actor, a professional actor. That's a craft. That's a profession. But we're taught by the media like it's a Cinderella story, and you can get discovered in a parking lot, and you can make it. And of course, that does happen. But that's like that's a fairy tale. That's a 0.001% great stories. But the reality is, there are thousands of talented actors grinding it out there who don't get that opportunity to just show what they can do. And I'm very fortunate with Kim's to have been able to be in that position and able to hit that home run. So
did you have when you were experiencing that, and every person that I know that's in that trade is exactly as you're saying, they go through the same thing every day. Did you have a network of friends that or people or colleagues and people you were working with that could relay to you that this isn't just you, this is the way it is? Okay.
Yeah, you need that. I mean, just to stay in it and to stay sane. We had a group of other young Asian male actors and female actors as well, and we would commiserate, and we would like rail against what's going on. And a lot of them were very proactive too, and they started their own theater company, or they got together, and it was a great network because while we were competing for roles, it wasn't cutthroat. So we were supportive as well. So it was like, did you hear about this audition? You should go out for it. And we'd show up and you'd see the same faces, and you could show up and you could go and fight with people or be rivals, or you could lift each other up. And I was very fortunate. The group that I hung out with, we lifted each other up. So if one of us booked it, we're like, good for you. That's awesome. Let's keep this up. Let's keep this up. And hence that's why Bitter Asian Dude came from my youth. When I was a younger actor, not booking work, wasn't able to get into relationships. It was just like everything, like angry at the world. I was bitter. And that's the thing. That's why I keep it, to remind me of where I came from. I'm not bitter anymore, but that's a place that I was at. And the realization of being in that sort of zone isn't good. It doesn't help you. Being angry and bitter all the time isn't a healthy place to be. And that's youth. Sometimes when you don't get what you want, you can go 2 ways. You can bitch and moan and complain about it and just stay negative, or you can just pull up your socks, right? Stick your nose to the grindstone and just go. Get ready. Like, don't waste your energy on that negativity. And so that's what I've tried to do from that point on.
Anil.
Polly, I discovered that you and I are basically exactly the same age, and we both had the similar experience of, we moved here. I mean, you were 3 months and I was 2.5. So essentially, very Canadian, but we do have that, your Korean heritage and my South Asian heritage. I'm from Fiji. But did you find you touched on a bit about on the pressure and of the parental guidance of, we joke about, like, I'm also a teacher and have a lot of Asian students, and I joke about them. It's like, so which one of the 5 accepted professions are you going to go for?
And I know that list.
You go, give me the list.
Yeah.
I gotta know the list is. What's the list?
Oh, yeah, we need the list.
It's okay. Well, I'll tell you my list, and then you tell me yours. For my parents, it was doctor, lawyer, teacher, doctor, lawyer, engineer, teacher, or a failure. You pick which one you want to be.
Okay, so we got 4 out of the 5 there.
Okay.
But we also, for some reason, it's always accountant. I don't know why. But anything with money, right? Like
because everybody needs an accountant. It's like that whole what does everybody need in their lives type thing. So you got to do, and it's like, yeah, but there are thousands and thousands. I mean, the odds now too, which is really funny. You would think that there'd be a shift and say, well, where aren't there a lot of opportunities? And so if you could make it, if you were different enough, you could make it big type thing, right? And you would think, yeah, the arts. They can do that. Like the odds are better that they can score work because there's less of us type thing.
I tried that one. I tried electronics back in the day. I'm in the same age as you guys. So electronics was amazing. It's going to be the future. I got into electronics and got into electronic engineering. And then in like 5 years, it was gone. It was throwaway materials and you just buy a new one. Like, okay, it's time for something new.
Right.
I want to talk about Kim's Convenience because I love the show. I'm itching for, I think it's January 19th, season 5 is coming out.
That's correct.
Itching for that because it's just something about it that just makes me feel warm and all fuzzy inside. And so tell me the story about how it went from, just real quickly, tell me the story how it went from stage to screen. How'd you get involved with Kim's Convenience?
Yeah, well, I got involved very early on. Basically, the creator, the playwright, Ince Choi, he was part of a playwriting unit with Fujian Theater Company. And he was an actor. Ince started off as an actor, and he was ostensibly wanting to learn to write so he could create his own work. And so he was part of this playwriting unit, and their goal at the end of the time they spent together was to write 2 scenes for a play. And so he came up with the idea of Kim's Convenience because it was something that he knew, like he always says, and this is true as well, you write what you know. And while his parents didn't have a convenience store growing up, he knew a lot of people who did, and he'd actually worked at a number of them. So he came up with these 2 scenes, and they went over so well, he was encouraged to write them into a full-length play. And that's kind of when I got involved. He'd gotten some money to do the play, to read those 2 scenes at the Toronto Diaspora Dialogues event. It's a literary event, and he needed an older Korean actor to read for the part of Appa. And there aren't very many older Korean actors around, or there weren't back then. At least anyone good, at least ones who could sort of carry off the gravitas sort of needed, like who had the craft to be able to do it properly. So he called me up, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll read for it. And for the longest time, I couldn't do a Korean accent to save my life because growing up, I didn't want to be Korean. I wanted to fit in. And when you're growing up and you don't see your stories reflected on any sort of media in a positive way, when your story isn't the narrative, you learn that your story doesn't matter, that your family doesn't matter. And if you want to fit in, you got to sort of be like everybody else. And so I didn't want to learn how to speak Korean. I didn't want to eat Korean food. I didn't want to know any of the customs, none of that. And, ironically enough, when I became an actor, as an Asian performer, you have to employ an accent. And I could do Chinese and Japanese, and I could do some Filipino, and I could fake it. But when it came to Korean, there's a complete block. Couldn't do it. Sounded Russian. It's like, it was so bad. It was just, and so I read these 2 scenes that Ince had written, and they were so heart achingly familiar that it was like this key got turned in my heart and my dad's voice started spilling out. Like, that was the power of those 2 scenes. And after that, I realized this is something that I need to be part of. If it's going to be a play, I know who this character is. I think I'm already in love with this character because this character is my dad and my uncle and my grandfather and all these stubborn Korean men that I grew up with. So that started my sort of involvement with that. And so over the course of like the next 5 years, on and off, every like twice a year, Ince would get some seed money, and he'd have a workshop. In a workshop, you bring actors in, they read the work, they ask questions, they give him notes, things to consider. He would go off, do rewrites, come back, and then we do a public reading. And the public readings were always just off the hook. People loved it. And finally in 2010, he finished writing it. He was ready to shop it around. He shopped it around to every single theater company in Toronto, and they all took a pass. They all said no. And Ince, because he'd been working on it for so long, it was like, I need to see this on its feet at least once. And so he entered it into the Toronto Fringe Festival. And he actually entered into a contest for Best New Play, and he won that. They judged it against other scripts, and so we won a slot in the Fringe, basically a free slot and some publicity. So we all, all the actors for Fringe, you don't get paid unless the show makes money, and even then, it's really not that much money. So you're doing it for the love, and you believe in the project. And so we volunteered our time, the cast. We came in. We lost our original director because she actually ended up getting a gig at Stratford, Ontario, which is the big Shakespeare festival out here. And it's very lucrative, right? So it's like Fringe show for free, or you could make a living, you can make a good chunk of change that'll last you for the next couple of years, right? Like everybody understood, go get paid. But that was another thing that sort of got in our way. But we all rallied around. Ince stepped up, and he became the third eye. And we premiered at the Toronto Fringe Festival in July of 2011, and it went nuts. Like the show exploded. And we sold out the run of that. They had to add extra shows. We won Best of Fringe, Best of the Pick of the Venue, Patrons Pick. So we had an extra show for that. We got invited to the Best of Fringe Festival, which was a couple of weeks later, which was basically they reran all the plays that did really well. They remounted them again. And then every single theater company that said no came knocking on the door asking if they could produce Kim's Convenience on their main stage shows. On their main stages. And Ince ended up choosing to go with Soul Pepper Theater Company. And he was an Academy member there. They had a Young Members Academy. So he knew Soul Pepper. And Soul Pepper, we premiered on their stages in January 2012. And it exploded again. And then they ended up bringing us back 3 times that year. And then we went on a national tour. And it just kept going and going and going. And in like I think it was January 2014, they announced that they developed it. They had reached a deal with a CBC television to develop the play into a TV series. And then 2015 we went to camera. No, 2016 we went to camera and shot our first season. It was just this incredible skyrocketing to production. And it was kind of like a fairy tale, because that's fast for any project to get developed and turned into a TV show. Usually it's years and years and years of development. This for TV, in terms of the TV timeline, was huge. So, excuse me. It's not COVID, it's just phlegm.
That's awesome. That is wonderful, because like I said, the show is fantastic. It's fun to watch. I know that for like my students, there's representation, and I do, before we move on to Mando, and we talk about the representation you're bringing to Mando. Anil, you did want to ask a very important Degrassi question.
Sorry.
Again, as soon as I saw we're the same age and we probably watched the same shows and stuff. So did you watch Degrassi growing up? And then being on the show, I mean, the Degrassi, of course, goes back to when those kids were like 5 years old, when it was kids at Degrassi Street. Yeah. And my main question is, were you like me, and did you have a crush on Caitlin?
I'm going to be very disappointing to you. My dad actually watched Degrassi more than I did. And that's why I never watched it. I was a sci-fi nerd growing up. So anything in space, I consumed voraciously, right? So like Lost in Space, Star Trek, Space 1999, shows like that. That was my jam. Like, I love that. And I remember one day walking in on my dad, and he's watching this show. I'm like, and there's kids in it. I'm like, what are you watching? He's like, oh, very good. Oh, lots of kids, and they have lots of problem. Oh. I'm like, what? You what kind of weirdo? You're watching a show about kids, Dad? And he's like, oh, watch. And I saw a little bit of it. It was like, I can't. No, I can't. And so I knew about Degrassi growing up, but I would just never watch it because for me, those kids were unrelatable because they had real world problems, like, and good, like really good cutting edge. But I was just like, but Dad, I want to watch this rerun of Star Trek that's been on 300 times that I've already seen, or they're showing Star Wars again on TV. It's just, I would have rather have watched that. And so, no. And so when I booked the Degrassi role, it was hilarious because I kind of knew the characters. And I think I knew more about them just because of Kevin Smith's obsession with Degrassi.
Very obsessed.
Yeah. And I love Kevin Smith's movies. And so like, I knew about Caitlin and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see it, kind of, not really, but okay. But I miss that sort of window of opportunity as a kid to watch it in their peak sort of Degrassi time with Snake and Joey Jeremiah and Wheels and all those guys. Like, I know their names and I know the actors now, which is really weird because I know them as their adult stage instead of their youthful stage. And Stefan Brogan, he's a great director now. He's become a fantastic director, and he's always been a really funny guy. And so it's neat that way because he directed me in a couple of the episodes that I was in. But for me, I didn't even realize I was going to be in 6 episodes of Degrassi because we block shot everything. So it's just like a few days for me. And then they took those scenes and they sprinkled them over 6 episodes. Like, oh shit, I was in a lot of Degrassi. Okay. But a lot of it, I was also wearing a cowboy hat with like a cow patterned vest and like pointy shit kicker cowboy boots. My character's name was Juan Tong, and he ran Little Miss Steaks, which was like this country western steakhouse that one of the main characters worked at. So it was like, oh, okay. That was, I don't know, it was a very surreal experience for me. And that's the thing. People were like, you were on Degrassi. And I was like, yeah, I was. So, oh my God, you must have lost your mind. I was like, yeah. So now I get it when there are people who are on like a Mandalorian. It's like, oh my God, you lost your mind. And you're like, yeah, it was fun. You know, when they're not of that genre, or they didn't grow up loving it.
Right.
Like, I get that. It's a gig for them. There's less and less of that in Mandalorian, though, because I think Filoni and Favreau have been very, very good at picking people who are huge fans as well, who get into it, except for Bill Burr, but he was awesome.
He came around.
Yeah. Well, he had to, right?
Yeah. He stopped slagging us on his podcast, and now he loves the Star Wars fans.
So let's talk. Sorry, go ahead.
Quick little follow up. But one of the things I found with Degrassi, you talk about representation. Growing up, that was one of the few shows that actually had people of color and Asian, South Asian, Black characters.
Yeah.
And, so I was like, oh wow, and they're actually 14-year-olds playing 14-year-olds. It wasn't like 90210.
Yeah.
And with Star Wars and all that stuff that we loved, I mean, it was until Lando showed up, I had nobody that looked even remotely like me on any of those great sci-fi movies that we all grew up with. So, I think that's why I kind of related to Degrassi, and like the people who like Degrassi love Degrassi, like you were saying, with Kevin Smith and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why. I mean, it's so funny because it never really occurred to me as a younger age that in a clear-cut sense that how come there are no Asians in space? Like, why is that? That's just the way it was. And because everything else was just like that anyway, you kind of accepted, well, that's what normal life is. And that's systemic racism there, right? Like, that's how it happens. Like, you're just exposed to this and you kind of go, well, it's just the way it is. What's the big deal? I mean, it's just, so what?
Well, who were you drawn to in Star Wars? Was there any characters that did draw you?
Yeah, Han Solo, obviously, because it's more like characters with attitude. It was never about color of skin for me, or at least just because it was so monochromatic. right? It was just so one, like the Swedish All-Stars team type thing. Until Lando showed up, really. I mean, you look at it, goes, there's no color in space. And then Lando, the one guy, and Chewbacca doesn't count. You know, it's one of those things where you don't question it. You just kind of go, okay. And so like you have these character archetypes that you fall in love with, like people like Luke, because he's like the yearning adventurer, the simple farm boy who wants more from his life and he wants to do more. And then, you know, with Han Solo, who's the rogue, the bad boy gone good type thing. And I liked Han just because of his swagger. I liked his self-assuredness. I love the fact that even when he was getting flustered, he was able to sort of power through it. Like there were a lot of moments where he's just like, "You're an idiot." Like when he's talking to the control, like when they're breaking out Princess Leia out of the detention center, and he's desperately trying to improvise his way out of that conversation. I thought was hilarious. And that's closer to his true personality. And you look at that and you kind of go, okay, this is, everything else is a false bravado. But when you have to be quick on your feet, you're just as clueless as the rest of us. You're just better at bluffing than a lot of us are. Which made sense that he was a card gambler, right? To me. And so there was that. For Star Trek, it was like, I was drawn to Mr. Spock, because he was the outsider. He was half human, half Vulcan, caught in between two worlds and not really accepted into either. And that's exactly where I was. I was Korean, but I grew up in Canada, so I was Canadian. But no one would accept me fully as a Canadian because of the way I looked. And if I went to Korea, they wouldn't fully accept me as Korean because of the way I acted. So I was stuck in two worlds. So that's Spock for me that's why I was drawn to him. I didn't even realize that at the time, but looking back at it, I go, oh, okay. And it's that struggle to try to find where you're at and where you belong. And so for me, that was a draw of sci-fi, because it was as well an escape. And I think something like Degrassi was like pulling me back into like, shit, man, I'm living this right now. I don't need to watch TV about it. That's I know. So it was just, that's why I think I got drawn to escapism and to the sci-fi worlds, because the possibilities just seemed more endless.
Escapism. It's the escapism
Yes.
of sci-fi was amazing. All I had growing up was Grange Hill. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. Grange Hill is Grange Hill was like Degrassi for English people. It's like the schools, and it was all about the turmoil and the things all the school kids are up to. And that's what we had. But I would instantly want to turn the TV over to the other channel. We only had 4 growing up. Well, actually, we only had 3, and then we went to 4. But yeah, you'd instantly turn over to the sci-fi, and it was always Star Trek.
Right.
And you know, it was a great escapism. Amazing.
Yeah.
Let's dive into a bit of Mando then. Let's wave our nerd flag high here. Carson Teva. First of all, we've heard the story about how you got the role, but where did the name come from, Carson Teva?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah.
When I got the script, first of all, I didn't know if the character had a name. I didn't know if they were going to see my face. I had no idea what the character was, because they use code names for everything, right? They need to keep everything spoiler free. And so it wasn't until I got my sides and I only got my chunk of the script where I had dialogue. And they were referred to X-Wing pilot number 1 and X-Wing pilot number 2. And I had to ask, so which one am I? Am I 1 or 2? And my agent had to ask, he said, oh no, you're X-Wing pilot number 1. I'm like, okay. But it isn't until the dialogue where X-Wing pilot number 2 says, Carson, can you switch over to channel 2? So I was like, okay, so his name is Carson. Carson? What kind of name is Carson? Oh, okay. So we shoot it, and of course, Dave Filoni is X-Wing pilot number 2. He's got a full ass name, Trapper Wolf, right? Really cool. He got his helmet redesigned, because in season 1, you know, they had the white helmets with the closer to the helmet that I'm wearing, and they had I think it was the Rogue One style flight suits, where it was like the satiny collars and the puffy jackets. They looked more like snowspeeder flight suits than anything else. But in season 2, they went back to the original trilogy type jumpsuits. But with that, Dave got a redesign. And so his helmet is like amazing, right? It's all gray. It's got the wolf emblems on it. He's got the black chin cup. It is as different from original trilogy helmet styles as he can make it, and deservedly so. I think that was kick-ass.
It was the purple lightsaber of helmets.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that. You've never seen a helmet scheme like that where it's all gray and there's no white in it. But so I had no idea who was, and he didn't have a last name. And in fact, I remember when we were about to shoot it, there was a discussion between Peyton Reed, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni about Carson. It's like, and Dave asked me, he's like, "What are you, Carson? Like, do you like that name?" I was like, "I don't know. I just give me whatever name you want." Like, does that mean I'm gonna leave? Like, no, it's fine. And so they're talking about it, and I said, "Well, what about, yeah, you could be." I remember, and I love this conversation too, because it was like the fact that they even considered it was, well, like you're his boss, so you should be like the captain. Like Rogue Squadron needs a new leader, right? It's not Wedge, so you could be Rogue Leader. I'm like, oh my god, that'd be huge, right? It's like, and like, please, 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 and then Peyton's like, no, we can't. Like, come on, shut up, Peyton. And then they said, well, just call him. We'll think of a name, but in the meantime, we'll just call you Cap. Like Captain, right? Cap. And then Peyton was like, no, because it's too much like Captain America. And I felt like saying, Peyton, that is so colonialist. You know, there's not only just one Cap. Cap is not just for Captain America. Cap has been in use in the vernacular before Captain America. But I didn't say that. So I was like, eventually they said, well, we can fix it in post. We can do whatever we want. I'm like, okay. And then when I did ADR, which is additional dialogue replacement, they kept Carson in. I was like, okay, whatever. But then Dave texted me a few weeks before, and he said, we're thinking about the last name of Teva or Tiva. What do you think? And again, I'm looking at my phone, dumbfounded, going, I don't know. Sure. And I said, thank you so much for even asking me, because you could have called him, and I made this joke before in another podcast, you could have called him Carson Garbage Knocker, and I would have been happy, right? Like, Carson Bantapudu. Yeah, he comes from a long line of Bantapudu. You know, it's stuff like, I was like, I got to have my face in a Star Wars series, and my character got to do cool shit. And you're asking me now if that's an okay last name. And I was like, whatever you want, I am happy to do. And yeah, so Captain Carson Teva. And I think one of the fans wrote that Teva is actually, I think it's got Hebrew roots to it, and it means, oh, I've forgotten now.
I know it is a sandal
or something like that. A sandal or a piece or something like that. But there's a nice meaning to it as well. So it's like, oh, okay, well, that's really cool. And so that's where the name came up, and I had like zero to do with it. Oh, and then Dave did joke. He said, well, you have to know what to name your action figure after. So I was like, action figures. Good Lord.
Any chance of that happening, do you think?
Zero, I would think.
Well, come on. They made like a Man. They made Rees. They made all these characters.
Yes, and
Rilro Hood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who knows? Hey, you know, the power of fandom is tremendous, and I think it'd kind of be a really cool limited edition. Like,
yeah,
it'd be a Canadian Tire exclusive.
Yeah.
Or you could get it at Tim Hortons with hockey
Tim
cups.
Hortons with a coffee.
Yeah, I would actually set foot in Tim Hortons for that.
Yeah, I would. I'd buy a Tim Hortons coffee to get that figure for
You
sure.
would never make it to Tim Hortons.
Make
All the
Carson
scalpers.
Teva figure happen. It's got to happen. We got to bang that drum hard.
But I mean, how much can you take? Like, how much can you take as a person who loves this franchise? You've been asked by Filoni what you think of the name, which to me is awesome. Knowing that happened knows how much they trust the people they've employed to represent the characters, that they would come to you because they know you love this. That is awesome for me to hear. I think that's amazing. So you get to sit in an X-Wing, you get to be the pilot, you get asked about your name. How much can your anus take? If you saw a 6-inch figure, would you just poop yourself, right? That's it.
No, it's gone. It's just like total loss of bodily control.
Yeah.
And like the tear ducts too. I cried so many times when I went down to Los Angeles to shoot this thing. It's embarrassing. I cried during the costume fitting. I cried when I sat in the cockpit. I cried, when they ran out of chocolate milk. No, it's like I felt like, and there's a phrase, it's my cup runneth over. That's exactly what it is. It's just like treat after treat after treat, and just magical moments that you never think you're going to experience. And they did take the 3D body scan of me. So, and I was like, what the hell is this all about? Like, is it like some sort of biometric thing? So if I try to smuggle something off the set through in my butthole,
it's the tree of trust.
It's like, oh, his gate is off. He's got something up his ass. Grab him. And they're like, and then I find out afterwards, it's like, no, they do that for all the actors in case they want to make action figures out of them. They've got the things, right? So
we'll campaign for it to happen. I do have a question though, relating to what I've just mumbled on about, but how did you feel? I mean, you say about crying when you did it. I can imagine that the emotions are running high in my head. You can see I'm a bit redder thinking about your experience, but what did you feel when you first walked into the volume? I mean, what did it feel like? Is that when it all became real, or did it become real before that for you?
I'd seen the volume before in season 1 because I did a set visit, and it was just a straight up visit to meet Dave and to watch my friend Deb Chow direct her episode. And so I saw it, and that I had no idea what to expect. I didn't even know it existed. And I remember going into the studio and seeing the back of the volume, and it's like hundreds of television screens, basically the backs of them, all the wiring, and it looks like a gigantic generator, like a sci-fi power generator, all the cabling and stuff. And I stepped in, and it was the episode, I think it was episode 5 of the Gunslinger that they were shooting, and they were in the docking bay in Mos Eisley spaceport and on Tatooine. And it's a scene where Grogu comes down the gang, like the first sort of reveal of him to Pelimoto, who's played by Amy Sedaris. And so I'm there, and I see them do this. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I'm looking, and I go, fuck, it's a baby Yoda. Right? and I'm like, I never even seen, like, first of all, like, I'm in this immersive environment with a practical set. They've got sand on the ground, real crates, real storage things. They got the bottom half, like the ramp of the Razor Crest. It's a practical thing, but everything else is digitally projected. And they have cameras that ring the entire perimeter of the volume, and they're all focused in on the main camera that they use to shoot the footage with. And that camera has all these mocap balls, so they can track exactly where the lens is going, and so they can shift the background, the projected image, so you can maintain that field of depth. And so it doesn't look out of place. It doesn't look like, oh, the angles are off. Like it's perfectly done that way. So I was there looking at going, I thought I was on a holodeck. It looked like I was in this huge cavernous space dock, basically. And then to have Baby Yoda come down, it was like with, the puppeteer was there doing it, but just to see what it was mind blowing. And I remember Dave saying, now don't tell anybody. Like, I'm not going to ruin this for people. Are you kidding? This is
going to have to do a 3D scan of you.
Yeah, exactly. He's got something huge up his butt. It was, and that was just like, I saw that and went, this show is going to rock everyone's world. This is going to melt the internet. And I got so stoked. And so the second time, and then I was actually going to be filming in it, they had built a second volume in that time, and it's bigger than the one in season 1. And then I saw that cockpit, and I saw the star field that they're projecting, and they have the Razor Crest just off the side. And it's a weird trick of perspective, because they have the actual cockpit of the X-Wing, and then the back end of it, like if the camera's facing the canopy straight on, the engines and the turbines are gigantic. They're projected, they're like 30 stories, but in the camera lens, they look proportional, right? So there's a bit of that where you kind of go, okay, well, that sort of pulls you out of the moment. But as soon as you sit in that cockpit and I look across, and there's the Razor Crest that's there, and there's another X-Wing across from that, and it looks real. It looks so real. And you're like, holy shit, I'm in a galaxy far, far away, sitting in an X-Wing, and there's the Razor Crest, and we're going to get it on. That's, man, that was it.
I got the tingles in the back of the neck.
I didn't want to get out. Like, honestly, I did not want to get out of a cockpit. I was just like, you're going to have to pry me out of here. Right. It's just,
Jamie, you had a question about the X-Wing. As far as
how you're supposed to perform.
Oh yeah. So in season 1, Dave Filoni said his direction for playing an X-wing pilot, at least in this situation, was to act bored.
Yeah.
Did you get the same direction? And as a follow-up, how was it kind of being or having the boss as your wingman?
Yeah. Those are great questions. They like that idea that the New Republic pilots are, because they've been through so much, that they were just so competent and confident. So it was like, if they're going to do a strafing run, it's like they're just going to land a passenger bus. You know, it's just so, we've been here, we've done that. There's no adrenaline. And that being said, though, they gave me leeway. Like Peyton Reed was just like, you know, you're going after him. Okay. You don't have to be excited. Like, I'm on him. You know, it wasn't any of that, but it was this whole, the range of emotion was, we were competent, deadly professionals. And just pulling up beside him, I mean, the main note was, you're like a traffic cop giving this guy a hard time. Like, your pauses spoke volumes. You let him stew in that indecision and and you never quite tip your hand as to how much you know or what you want to do to him, right? And it was all about turning the screws and just being that little bit of an asshole to give him a hard time. Right? It's like, oh, notice your taillights out. just one of those things, right? And of course, having Dave there was, having Dave there is tremendous, because he hates being in front of camera. Like, he does. And he is super busy, and there's so much he'd rather do, but he's there. And that's so flattering, and just such an amazing thing to have the guy who's going to be the guy at Lucasfilm, like him and Favreau. They hand him the keys it's like hand him the keys to the kingdom. And I respect Kathleen Kennedy a lot, because she has done a tremendous amount for Lucasfilm, but even in her own career, what she's accomplished and the projects that she's been involved with, you got to have respect for that. But I've met John, I've met Dave, haven't met Kathleen, and I know Dave a little bit. And it's just that the fact that he would take the time to do that, to make me feel comfortable, and because he considers me enough of a friend that it'd be fun to hang out with on a day of shooting, I think means so much to me. It means so much. And it's just like, I appreciate that. And I'm so grateful for that. And I know, just because he's a busy man, they're all so busy. And that little token means the world. And I know I get that as a fan. Like, I understand that as a fan. And I try to carry myself that way too with fans of Kim's. The littlest gesture can mean so much, and it costs me nothing. And so it goes a long way. So spread that joy, right? Spread that joy.
Anil, you had a question.
Yeah, so like, you kind of touched a little bit on the origin of Carson Teva and stuff, but with, you know, we are all Star Wars geeks, and we love those little background characters, and you know, we make up our own backstories and stuff, and like, we all have that cult of Wedge and all that sort of thing. So have they shared anything with you on, like, what did Carson Teva do in the Battle of Endor, or any of that? And if not, have you already made your own whole magical backstory?
I was trying to dig for information beforehand with Dave, and he was very like, well, it's a big universe. And so my big thing was like, I was like, what if, and I've shared this with other podcasts too, but it's like, what if Carson was the guy that missed all the battles and he's pissed about it? Like, he's like, he couldn't participate in the Battle of Yavin because there was something wrong with one of his power converters, his X-Wing. So he had to sit on Yavin and suck it as everybody else got killed, basically. But he was like, oh, I missed out on that. He couldn't participate in the defense of Hoth because he was like charged with like escorting one of the transports out. So he was like, oh, so I couldn't do that. He missed the Battle of Endor because he had diarrhea and was stuck in the outer, like stuff. And I kind of, and same with Jakku. It's like he slept in and he missed his trip. So I kind of was joking about that. And that's why he's patrolling the Outer Rim. Yeah. And so I floated that to Dave, and he's like, he's this guy who just feels like he's missed out. And Dave's like, no. I was like, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So I'm excited. The way I look at it is, I don't know a ton of his background other than the fact of what's been shared. He served during Alderaan. He's a grizzled vet. He's been around the block. He's smart enough to know that you will not survive in the Outer Rim by being slavish to the rules. You can't follow the letter of the law when you have limited resources and you're on your own. Basically, that's a suicide mission. And so he's like the old beat cops of way back when, or the U.S. Marshals. He goes through and he fosters relationships with different groups of people on different planets. Some of them might be a bit shady, but it's that whole, if they know you and they respect you and you can help them in ways and they can help you, it sort of goes back and forth, right? It's like the cop that knows all the gang members.
Yeah.
You let these smugglers go through you, like, what they're doing isn't legal, but it's not that harmful either, right? Like, this is commerce. This is business. This is something that really, on the grand scale of things, isn't damaging. And so he knows to play in those gray areas. And he's like, no one listens to him back in the core worlds. I think that's what it is. He's trying to warn them that something's happening out there, but nobody on the core worlds, because they're so involved in establishing a new government, it's a low priority, and they don't believe him. They don't think what's happening out there. And that's precisely the spot they should be looking. These are blind spots, right? It always comes from where you don't expect it. So you should be watching out. And so he's kind of like that soothsayer that nobody listens to. And obviously he's doomed to fail, because the First Order rises out from the Outer Rim. Right? That's how it all begins. And so they think they're smart enough to see that and to play into that, play out that storyline. And I think that's a tragic storyline to follow, because we all know what happens. And it's like, when you're seeing it at the ground level, it's like, well, why didn't they just, if they had only done this, or if they'd only done that, that makes for compelling storytelling. It's you see how they got to that point in a sense. And I don't know, it's pretty cool.
Any chance of you being on the Rangers show coming up soon?
I would love to be on that show.
Yeah.
I would say yes in a heartbeat. No one's contacted me about that.
Cross our fingers.
Fingers crossed. But I think they're still in development for that show. I don't think any dates have been announced. I think, from what I've gleaned on the internet, they're shooting Book of Boba Fett right now. And then after they're finished shooting that, then they'll start shooting season 3 of Mandalorian. And even Rogue Squadron. And I don't even know what timeline that feature is going to be for Patty Jenkins' film. That's not until like 2023. So,
Neil,
I was just to say, as a fan first, I mean, we got dumped all this amazing content coming up. Which one are you most excited for?
Oh man, it's like giving a starving man a menu. Right? It's like, what do you want? It's like, there are so many great things out there right now. I don't think there's one I'm particularly jonesing for right now. I'd want them all at once, to be honest. If I could get it all, I just like hook it to my veins. I'm just gonna mainline all this. That being said, I would love to continue on with Mando 3, Mandalorian season 3, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Rangers of the New Republic, just because my character would exist during those time frames.
All of it.
So I'm like, oh, let's go. I'm ready. I'm excited for Obi-Wan, because Deborah that's her baby. She's gonna be that. She's ushering that through, and I'm a big fan of Ewan McGregor. And Hayden Christensen reprising his role as Anakin. I'm jonesing to see what they're going to do with that. Ahsoka is fantastic, because that's going to be Dave's, and with a character that he created. And that episode in season 2 that he directed with Ahsoka he just knocked that one out of the ballpark too. For me, I saw her like within the first 10 seconds of her appearance, I had tears in my eyes and goosebumps on my arms. And it was just like, she's real. Look at her. And she's fantastic. And those dual wielding, like the Japanese style, the lightsabers were just so freaking badass. And the way she just disappeared into the mist. And I loved the callback to like the nod to the old samurai movies. the Akira Kurosawa movies. And I just love that. So the way it carried itself and the tone of that was just spot on. Yeah, I mean, and then Squadrons. It's just a laundry list of all these things. I go, yeah, that's cool. It's just like
almost too much.
Yeah, beggars can't be choosers. At this point, it's like whatever you give to me, I want to enjoy.
It was a lovely surprise.
Star Wars fan, I think you're right. I think, I think all the guys here, we're all looking forward to that Obi-Wan because everyone's getting their time on the screen that they never maybe got within the movies, right? Yeah. We got to see them at their old age. We saw Obi-Wan in his young ways, but all of us have been jonesing to find out what he did when he was in the desert, And I think that's going to be so cool to see.
I want to jump in now to some 501st questions before we wrap things up here, because you being a member of the Canadian Garrison, the 501st Legion, it is something I'm really proud of being a member of. It took me a while to get there, but the journey was a lot of fun. How did you discover the 501st, and what was your journey like?
The first time I'd ever even knew the 501st kind of existed was I was working at Blockbuster Video in 1999. And that's when, just before episode 1 was coming out, they'd been announced and it was a month out of theaters, and people started camping out in front of the movie theater across the street from the Blockbuster that I was at. And I was like, okay, I get it. You're excited. But 3 weeks beforehand, camping out on the street was a bit much. And then one day, a squadron, like a platoon of stormtroopers walked into the store. And these weren't the Halloween Ruby specials where they come in or the cloth zip up ties on the back with the one piece. These were fully kitted, screen accurate TKs trooping into the store. And I was like, I had never seen that kind of cosplay up close right in front of my eyes. And I was absolutely blown away by just how sharp they look. They look fantastic. They look like they stepped off the screen, and they were great. They're very respectful, and they went through, and it was we all got our pictures taken with them. And as they left, not one person was not smiling. We all had huge grins on our faces. And so that's when I was like, who are these guys? Like, this is like, are they a group of friends that got together? Or were they hired by a publicity company? So I started to dig, and then I found out about what the 501st was. And then what happened was Kim's Convenience Store came, and with the popularity of Kim's, I started getting invited to a lot of these charity events. And I went, and one was for the Starlight Foundation back in 2016. And I went with my wife, and the 501st was there. And I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And I had my picture taken with them. And in fact, I instead of going into the main ballroom where the dinner was being held, I hung out with the troopers. And I was just like, so like, hey, and then it was like, I was just chatting with them. I said, can you take off your helmet? Can we talk? And in fact, I remember there were a couple of members of the 501st of the Canadian Garrison that I'm a part of that actually were trooping at that event, and they remember me and I remember them, which is great. And so I asked, I said, so like, how did you build it? Like all these questions about because I knew in my mind I wanted to join and I wanted to build my own cosplay of this. And so that was like, for me, that was intelligence gathering, just getting all the information. And then again at Fan Expo, going to their booth and meeting them proper and getting the more information. And so from that, I was able to glean, where you could order kits from, who are the reputable vendors. I did all my research in terms of the costume builds, found all these great threads on all the forums. I joined up, as a novice, and then making friends and then finding out how to submit photos for membership approval. And it was, I think finally, what ended up happening was I did a dry run with my kids. I built them Halloween costumes. So my youngest, I built him a miniature TK, and my eldest, I built a short trooper costume. And that was my trial run. I thought, okay, these look pretty good. But I was jealous that they were having all the fun in them. So that's when I ordered my own armor, and then I went for it. And in October of 2018, I submitted, and my first cosplay was a TIE fighter pilot. So that's how I got in. And so that's what my Canadian Garrison ID is TI 74447. And so that's how I started. But it's a slippery slope because like once you get one, you can't stop, right? got to keep going. Got to keep
Mhm.
going. So,
So-
then I got my, I think I went, the reserve pilot was next because that was the most simplest to modify. Then I got, I actually ordered through a Novos, a line officer uniform, and it came within 2 weeks. I know, right? Like miracles. I was shocked. I was like, oh,
It's the
okay.
power of stardom, kids.
Well, no, I mean, I certainly wasn't a star then. And to be honest, too, like that got me into trouble because I thought, well, what's wrong? Novos is great. They send me stuff all the time. And so I think I'm still out. They still owe me like a number of helmets that are now pushing on 3 years. But I got my Darth Vader helmet.
Yeah.
And that was
You're
two
the
years.
video of the Vader one. That was 3 years, you said.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, so that came. I'm still waiting for the Luke Skywalker one that I got on pre-order. And then there's a Mando one that was in stock when I ordered. And then that went, and same with the it was the short trooper bucket. They said, hey, these are available. Go snap one up quick. And like an idiot, I did. I'm still sitting on that going, oh, that's so dumb. I'm so dumb. And so my trick was, and then I got a TK kit from them, untrimmed, full, and that one I got in 3 weeks. So it's either they have it and you get it right away, or they have it and they screw you. I think it's completely random. It's like import charges. Every once in a while, you go, oh, am I going to get dinged for this? It's like, no, they didn't charge me import tax. And then it feels completely arbitrary. It's like, oh, I got this envelope, and I have to pay how much for that? Oh, so.
Will you ever be cosplaying as yourself now?
Oh my God, that's a question I never even considered.
I know it's a usual question, but we got to know.
No, it's weird. I don't know. That's kind of weird, right? If you cosplay it yourself, like, because I do have a Rebel pilot costume, and you know, somebody in the Rebel Legion said that would be cool because you would be the first person to model the character that you actually play.
Yeah, you'd be the CRL for Carson Teva.
That would be.
Watch you get it disapproved on it though.
I know. That's the one thing. It's like, no, that leg flares off. That would be it, eh? The beard doesn't look right.
Steve, you had a question. Sorry.
That's the best. That's the best. I have a question. Yeah, I have a question on that. No, I just forgot though, because you just totally made me laugh about it. So this is the thing. So I know you love cosplay as a whole. I know you love conventions as a whole. I know it's not just about Star Wars with you, and I totally understand that. That's exactly where I'm at with it all. We've lost conventions at the moment because of COVID, and we're all hoping that they're going to come back because the family's missing, and we all need it. Do you think, though, with everything that's going on, that you are going to be able to parade the con floor as you once used to, or are you going to turn into an Adam Savage, and are you going to create a costume to hide yourself and see if anyone spots you?
Yeah, I love that about Adam Savage. I love that he does that, and I think that's the only way he can actually get through cons now. Such as it is now, it's funny because I'll do cons with Andrew Fung, who's my best friend, and he's also one of the co-stars on Kim's, and he's a big nerd and geek too. But what we'll do is, my biggest dream was always to do a panel at a con and to have a table. But what we do is something different. We don't sit behind the table and sign autographs. The last con that we were at, it was Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, not the Fan Expo, but the Entertainment Exposition. And instead of a table, we wanted 2 couches. And we had people, so if people lined up and they bought our merch, we sat down with them and we hung out with them for like 10, 15 minutes, sitting on this couch, just sort of chatting with them.
Awesome.
And it was great because we were right across from all the other tables where all the celebrities were, right? The big name stars. But they were all looking over going, that's really cool. I wish we could do that. And that's what we want. We want that we want to put the fan back in Fan Expo because it's for the fans. And if you're lucky enough to be asked to one of these, yes, you're getting paid a fee, but it's still an honor and a privilege to be there because the fans make you. And if you're there for the fans, you have to treat the fans like gold. And for me, treating the fans like gold is just, it doesn't take much. You just talk with them. You hang out, you listen, you share stories, you joke around. And it's like hanging out with a new friend every 10 or 15 minutes, as long as it takes, to just sort of make them feel like they've experienced something really cool, which for me is just like, hey, let's just talk. What do you like? What and share stories. It's fun. That being said, so when we go off, we have that little sliver of time to sort of shop. Fung is he's like a heat-seeking missile. He goes and he's good at, I'm sorry, I got to get this thing. And he'll come back with like bags full of shit. I'll go and I can't say no to anybody. So I always end up getting caught, and not caught, but I'll stop and I'll chat. And I go, oh my God, I'm 5 minutes. I have to go. And I haven't gone more than 20 feet. And I come back and it's like, and Andrew's like, I thought you were going to get all these action figures that you're looking for. And it's like, yeah, I got stopped by a bunch of people. He's like, that's your problem, man. You gotta just put your head down and go and get, because that's your time. And I get it. So I think for cons, I don't mind being stopped and talking to people. I honestly don't. I love that. But I also get a kick out of if I could wear a helmet and walk through and just get shit done.
Yeah,
I'd be up for that too.
Maybe all you have to do is just shave, and then no one's gonna. Yeah,
it's funny too. If you have cosplay that is spectacular enough or can draw attention away from your face, that works. Because I cosplay as a Ghostbuster too, and I have like my proton pack. When that's on and the thing is rocking, that's all people see at first is a proton pack.
Yeah,
and they look at your face and they kind of go, "Oh, you look kind of familiar," but they're more interested in what you're wearing on your back. Yeah. And I think those great cosplays that direct attention away from the actual wearer to the costume. They're great to have. And then invariably somebody go, oh my God. And then everybody, once the heads start to turn and they all lock in, once you're made, you're done. They all come in and it's fun. It's fun.
Neil.
You mentioned collecting, and so I always ask everybody what's their favorite item. What's their grail item? And I mean, you got to wear Biggs's helmet.
Oh,
so like, my third question is always, you're in that famous shot of Lucas standing in Skywalker Ranch with all the props around him, right?
Yeah.
What do you grab?
3 questions, Paul. 3 questions.
Okay. What was the first question again?
Favorite item, grail item. And so
what are you stealing from Skywalker Ranch?
What are you stealing from Skywalker Ranch?
Favorite current item. Go.
It's like picking kids.
Everybody's got favorites.
That was our next question. Who's your favorite?
I don't know. I know.
We won't tell.
Current item right now. I have to say it's my proton pack, just because I spent so much time on it, and it is a showstopper. It's the first replica prop that I built. That's spot on. I mean, I have my first one I built out of foam core and Sintra, and it looks really good, but it's not like the Cadillac version of my fiberglass shell with all the electronics in, the aluminum parts, the greeblies that were sourced, screen accurate as I can make it. I mean, that was a labor of love in terms of research, in terms of scouring different build threads, and just shitting my pants, trying to decide where to drill this hole, and is this the right spot for him? And I'm going to fuck this up if I do this wrong.
Yeah.
That for me is still, and that started the whole slide into cosplay and collecting hardcore, like prop replicas and stuff. So that's my favorite right there. It has
your face on your YouTube channel when you switch that on, even though you've done it a million times, is just the best. It's the best.
And that's what I wanted. The sound of that power up and the thrumming of it is just, it was that movie had such an impact on me as well, right? As a 12-year-old in the theaters, it was just like, and I'd always wanted a proton pack. So there's that. Second question, the grail item. Now that's something that I don't have that I would love to track down. That's a really great question.
Your costume from The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Oh man. That would be cool. That would be really cool. Yeah, that would be really cool. Maybe the helmet that I got to wear for the Mandalorian and to grab that would be great. Or even the whole costume, because it was tailored to me, and just to have that on display would be fantastic. I think that'd be my grail, is the costume I wore on the Mandalorian. Because
I was expecting like Han Solo's gun belt from the original.
I had been thinking about that, but I would never be able to wear it.
You don't have to.
I know, but I would want to. I would want to. Plus, I already ordered the Novos version of it.
I'll come in 2027.
No, I have it.
Oh, you do? Awesome.
I got that in like 2 weeks. So it's crazy. That's why I got sucked into the Innovos hole.
That's where they get you.
Yeah, I was getting stuff. I was like, why is everybody complaining? I'm getting it. It's not a problem.
So is it okay to contact you if we want something? Because you can get it.
No, that well has run dry. That well has run dry.
So what are you taking from from Skywalker Ranch now?
Yeah.
Probably there's that huge ass Star Destroyer that's behind him, like that big one, like that big one.
Executor.
I don't know. Well, no, not the Executor. Like I think it's the Avenger. Yeah.
With all the fiber optics going into all the windows. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I'm in love with that capital ship for whatever reason. Maybe it was because when I was 5 years old and you see it, the tip of the nose, and it just keeps going and going and going. And then you see the engines that are fully lit up. There's something about that that's stuck in my head. And for me, that is an iconic capital ship. And you see the different variations of it, like the Executor, which is like dwarfs it. But there's something about seeing these Imperial Star Destroyers when they jump out of hyperspace and they show up. And there's an immediate feeling of dread. Like, oh shit, they're here.
Yeah.
I always love that. And even for Rogue One, the Battle of Scarif, when you see how big they are and how they sort of, when they collide into each other, and just the massive scale of that, and the idea that it's the Imperial Navy it's a proud fleet type thing. And that's sort of like their iconic go-to workhorse ship. So I think I try to steal that. It'd be really hard to fit up my butt though. Get out.
I was gonna say that's a bold choice for someone who seems prone to smuggling things up their butt.
That, or you know what was really cool when I was on the set of Mandalorian season 1, Josh, and his last name escapes me. He's a properties master for that show, and they have a vault, and they have all the guns in there, and like the majority of the blasters are based off of real world weapons. And it was so cool because I actually got to hold one of the blasters that was used by a skiff guard in Return of the Jedi, and I think it's like an old Crossman like air pistol with the sight turned upside down and stuff. But again, I'm holding living history, in my hands, and it's like with the Biggs helmet. I saw this up on the screen. That connection of, I remember exactly where I was when I saw that up on the screen, and now when you're holding it, let alone wearing it, it makes you emotional. And the same thing with seeing that gun and being able to hold it and going, I felt like Will Wheaton in Stand By Me, when he pulls out that 45 and he's holding a real gun. He's like walking, talking, Jesus. It felt like that. It's just like, I'm holding something from Return of the Jedi. That was cool. And then seeing other things like the Camtono and them rejigging and like repurposing it and showing, well, it wasn't an ice cream maker. And they made it cooler. Right? Yeah. The fact that it is a storage container and a secure one, I thought was really, really neat too.
What's your next costume you're thinking of building?
Well, right now I have, what am I building? I have a First Order TK that's sitting in a box that's screaming at me right now to finish. So but that one's pretty involved. I just finished my OT, my stunt, A New Hope stunt TK, and I need to submit pictures for that. But then I gained like weight, and so it's like, oh no, I look like I look terrible in it. So I need to slim down a little bit so I can get those side gaps disappearing.
Shims
a little bit, yeah. Oh no, I already have shim in there. So it's proportionally. I think I'm just a few pounds off, and then I'll be more comfortable submitting for that. And then, like certain angles I look great, but then when I turn to the side, it's like, oh, his stomach's out.
I know that feeling, man. Yeah. I know that feeling.
So there's that. But there was a cosplay. What the hell was it? My brain is mush now. I need to finish off my Mud Trooper. I was thinking of, after Mandalorian season 2, the Transport Trooper, where they have the Mud Trooper armor with the
yeah, that was cool.
Helmet. Yeah, that was.
I liked your Scout Trooper as well. Being a fellow TB myself, and well, same with Jamie. The Scout Trooper was super nice.
Yeah. I need to rework I can't get the lid to stay up, the helmet, the visor to stay up on that. So I need to look at that again, because it keeps slipping down, and I need to find a screen accurate chin cup for it because I think right now there's no chin strap that comes with it.
Where'd you get the bucket from?
Crop Circle.
Crop Circle?
Yeah,
because I'm possibly looking for a new one, so I want to check some other. So
yeah, check it out.
Without rambling, and I know time is short for us now, but do you own like a 3D printer or something like that?
Yes.
Do you make your own attachments that you can't find? Do you download the files? Do you love making as much as you like assembling?
I do. I got an FDM printer, an artillery sidewinder, which has a fairly large print bed.
Right.
It's been great. But I got a resin printer. I got a Mars.
Nice. Pro. So Greeblies are your thing now, man.
Yeah.
You can bang those Greeblies out.
And that's what I'm most jazzed about is printing those out. But the only problem is I have no space anymore. I have like I'm crammed in my basement as it is.
It's like Sand Sweet North up there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm trying. I have to. I mean, again, and the things now I'm looking at I haven't even unboxed my Elegoo Pro. It's still in a box because I don't have space for it. But now the Pro 2 has come out, and now the Mars Elegoo Saturn has come out, and like the bigger ones. And now I'm looking at going, maybe I could 3D print entire buckets.
Where does it stop? Where does it?
Yeah, where does it stop? Right? It's like I don't have to spend thousands on a Novos. I can just print it myself.
Yeah, right? I procrastinated for so long on printers, and I think you spoke to Terry, right? You're part of our garrison, Terry Chu. So Terry's like the 3D printer master. He's been going on that stuff for years. Yeah. And I keep reaching out saying, "Have you heard about this one? Have you heard about this one?" Because they keep coming out with something different. Yeah. And and like you say, space is the thing. And so rather than getting the bigger one, I had to go with a smaller one, and now there's none in stock. So I'm like,
it's nuts. I got into 3D printing because the props department for Mandalorian, they have a whole 3D printing farm and all the resin printers. And that's what got me. I was like, oh, okay. And the A280 blaster that I used in episode 2 was like, oh my God, this is what a fantastic weapon. Yeah. You know, because it's got the lineage from Empire Strikes Back to Return of the Jedi. And I'm holding a variation of it, and it's heavy because it's based off of a real World War II German submachine gun.
Yeah.
And in fact, that's one of the reasons why I got an FDM printer was to print out my own version of that, and I actually do have it.
Cool.
And it's just like, yeah, it's amazing. Now I'm just afraid of dropping it, right? So it's for display. But that's when you see things and you're inspired by them. I think that's really cool. Like I love that.
We're coming close to the end of time here. I did have a real quick question about your TI number, 74447. I always like to ask where people get their number from.
That was my Blockbuster employee number.
Get out of here. That is awesome.
74447. That was my Blockbuster number. And that was probably one of the best jobs I ever had, renting movies to people.
Oh, that's awesome. Steve, sorry.
I have one more 501st question for you. Being a fellow 501st member, how many times when you wore your TI did you get called?
I know. Really? I don't get it.
I don't get it.
It's like, is it because I almost want to go racist? What, because we're all black? Do we all look the same? They look different. They are different. I don't know. I don't remember seeing hoses on Vader. There's no cape. It's weird. I think people just, but I get that. Like, oh, look, it's Darth Vader. It's like, no, I'm a TIE pilot. A what pilot? It's like,
you have a hashtag not Vader t-shirt.
Yes. I do.
Before we wrap up here, Jamie, sorry, you have any questions? Anybody have any questions to wrap things up here?
No, I mean, you've been really generous with your time. I don't want to hold you up any longer than.
Oh my God. No worries, man. See, this is what I love. And I keep saying this. I can talk forever. And you're having a great time when you lose track of time. And I feel like and I've been very, very fortunate. A lot of these podcasts I've been on, I've met new friends. And it's like you meet your peers and like-minded individuals who share the same passions as you. And that's a joy. Like I have no problem spending time because this is time well spent, and it helps me. For me, mentally, it makes me feel happy. Right. This brings me joy, an immense amount of joy. And I'm just like honored to have met you guys. And thank you so much for listening to me.
So in that case, then the next question and final question from Mr. Blabber here will be, can we do a part 2? Because there's so much stuff we haven't got to ask yet.
No, absolutely, guys. Honestly, I would love to. I would be honored to come back.
Awesome.
When you're in Vancouver.
Yes.
I am coin challenging you right now, guys.
Oh,
Steve?
All right. Okay.
Did you have one, or is that your coaster? You pull it. That's a camera.
Actually, it's in a box over there. I'm in my sweatpants,
So,
but I have my coins in the box right over there.
next time, if you ever make it to Vancouver, was it 2024 when it's lifted? Oh, nice choice, by the way. Oh, there you go, from New Zealand.
Yes.
We'll definitely get together, hopefully, and we would love for you to troop with us if you ever get the chance here at the Outer Rim Garrison. I've had a number of people. I asked them questions from the garrison if they had any questions. I know people like Commander Selfie or XO, Ryan, Andrew. They were all having so many questions here, and we got to hit off of them. So we really appreciate your time.
Oh, no.
Tell us where can we find you? I know you've got the YouTube channel as well as your Instagram, but tell us more about where we can find you.
You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BitterAsianDude. That's the one that started it all. That's the first time. And I've got a Facebook fan page, Paul Sun-Hyung Lee. That's my full name on Facebook. Although I don't check that as often, so it's hit or miss there. But mostly your best chances really are my YouTube channel, Bitter Asian Dude Inc. on YouTube. Check it out. I'm really surprised at how many more subs I got since I've actually been appearing on a lot of these podcasts, which has been really, really lovely. And you can see more of who I actually am through my YouTube channel. I'm a nerd. I'm a fan. I'm a geek. I really do enjoy this culture a lot, and I have a lot of collectibles, and I love to share. And I welcome open discourse. So leave a message or a comment, and I'll try to get back to you. And as well, my Instagram page, Angry Appa, at Instagram. It used to be @BitterAsianDude, but then that big scare, like maybe 10 years ago, about Instagram's going to do something with your pictures, delete your accounts, and I did. And you couldn't get the same name back again. So I was like, oh, so that's why it's the only thing that's differently branded. And I also have a website, bitterasiandude.com, and you can check it out. I'm hoping to expand on that, get some more blog stuff written on it, and merch runs. So
I also want to do a shout out to the Canadian Garrison and Jim Sabota and his wife. What's Jim's wife's name again?
Oh my God. God.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
I said her name. I said her name.
You did before the show. That's what reminded me to talk about.
Jim and Shannon Sabota.
Yeah, so for all the work they're doing with the masks and everything out there, and we really appreciate it for all their hard work. 501st is an important thing for many of us here, and the role that we do and the work that we do to raise money for others. So check out the Canadian Garrison. So Neil.
I just wanted to apologize if you caught me looking down a bit. I made something for you that I'd love to send you.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
He was working on that during the podcast.
Yeah.
So
get out of here.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Beginning, and I was scrambling to get it.
Neil, this is a good lead to what do you do and where can we find you?
Oh, in my parents' basement. No, I'm not. Space Hindu 73 at Instagram. Space Hindu Art and Photography on Facebook. Space Hindu on Twitter. And I do the Topps cards, of course, and so the current set that is just come out is Topps Star Wars Holocron, and so we're waiting on Mandalorian season 2. So, Paulie, get ready. I'm gonna put you on some. These are the stuff that I work on for Topps. So you can expect.
Oh my.
You can expect.
Wow.
I will be doing, you know what? I'm going to go whole hog and, sorry, Muff Tack is upside down. Muff Tack. Here's your co-star. I just finished this one for somebody.
Awesome.
So, I'm going to be doing Mandalorian season 2 once that invite goes out. And I'm just going to do like 5 or 10 of you for people to find. So I love that we've got a little connection now, and I'm just gonna,
Can you do a side-by-side, Anil, and do a good portrait with a Star Destroyer looking like it's coming out of his butt? And it will only be people who listen to the podcast that will get it.
I was thinking we should do a little. I should do a couple of cartoons of you watching these battles or sitting on the toilet while the battle is going on. We'll have to do a couple of those, and I'll throw.
Orchids took my spot.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Looking back over your shoulder as Hoth is going on while you're driving.
Oh, that's awesome.
Jamie,
I'll send that out to you if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be honored. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
well, Jamie, you're one of the few here that kind of avoid social media. So tell us more about where we can find you. Or
well, you can't find me anywhere except here on this podcast.
There you go.
But I mean, I'll take this opportunity. I didn't have anything YouTube wise to pump last week, so I feel like this week I need to pump Bitter Asian Dude on YouTube.
Yeah,
check him out. He's an awesome
it's so
channel.
much fun watching it.
Yeah, highly recommended, man. I had a lot of fun watching them, and the outtakes at the end are worth it more.
Dude, the outtakes broke me.
More than anything. I had tears in my eyes at some points.
This whole thing's been done by teleprompter, by the way. So
in fact, Rob's done really well. He reminded me of Rob when I watched the teleprompter thing.
Oh, jeez, yeah. I'll get that
Yeah.
angry part.
Yeah, I love the outtakes on the videos.
Oh,
Yeah, that was amazing.
Steve, where can we find you?
On Instagram, still on Instagram, you can find me under Shit Spackled Muppet Fart and follow my cosplay journey and builds. It's all gone a bit quiet, as you know, but I'm starting to find my roots in creating again. So I'm going to try and tackle all the things I promised to do, starting with my Sergeant Creel from the comic books, Marvel Stormtrooper. So
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going to own a lightsaber and wear a Stormtrooper armor.
yes.
You can find me at the Outer Rim Rookie on YouTube. It's our Generation X-Wing YouTube channel. It's a beginner's journey to joining the 501st, where you see me putting together my Biker Scout costume, and now I'm putting together my Neon Nun costume. So hopefully that will go well, as well as just showing what we do behind the scenes at the 501st here in the Outer Rim Garrison, as well as you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well on that one, as well as the Generation X-Wing podcast on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on generationxwing.com, all those great places. We have Patreon, we have TeePublic. Anywhere you want to find us, you'll probably find us. Generation GXW hashtag if you want to find us there. Mr. Lee, Paulie, thank you so much for joining us. It was an extreme pleasure, and we appreciate it. We hope to talk to you soon again. Keep safe. Wear your masks, everybody, and
Don't touch your face.
don't touch your face. Yeah. We will talk to you later. Take care. Bye.
Okay. See you.